This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Brewers Outlet, and Purdy Insurance.
Well, we're bringing back Donnie Collins, and Donnie talked about this last week, and you had a couple of hints in there as to if it didn't go well, what could happen, and it did. How have you reacted to seeing how the last 48 hours has played out?
It's stunning to me, Steve. If you told me 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, that James wouldn't have a job, and by the middle of October, I'd have bet my house against that, and I'd be homeless right now. And it's just one of those things that I don't think I ever pictured it coming, because I didn't picture them losing the game. How do you go out there and in a game that you're the more talented team in with everything on the line and not improve on the two losses and kind of go out and struggle again in the first half and all that and a lot of things that I thought would happen in that game didn't, and it led to a lot of things after the game and in the day after the game that you can't picture happening a month ago. It's just been a fascinating kind of free fall at Penn State, and if I have no explanation for it, no theories, nothing. I don't really understand how all of this happened and why it's gotten to this point, but it certainly has.
The funny thing is, Donnie, that's exactly how in the first part of the show. I said, look, I apologize to the audience. I mean, normally I have a pretty good handle on why or why not, and I think I can explain it.
Yeah.
I mean, Donnie, I really can't explain it. I mean, I keep looking at it, and I have no answers. I don't know.
I think just kind of looking at it from the overhead perspective, I think if there's, I guess, something I could look at and say, what happened that you didn't expect would happen? Number one, it's everything. But number two is I think we overrated the defense a little bit. I think I'm willing to look at the depth of what they had coming back this year and say that they didn't have the depth it took to compete for a championship on defense. That they really missed a guy like Abdul Carter. There's that kind of consistent explosion isn't there. You're seeing Chop Robinson a couple of years ago, but they replaced him with Abdul, and there's really been no. I think Benida the Sutton, I said last week, has played well, but not in a dominant fashion against these types of teams. So I think you look at it from that perspective. You say defense hasn't been great, so that's why you're looking at it. That's why you're looking at this as kind of an abject failure of a season. But there's no excuse for the offense. I have no. The offensive line's been shoddy. The quarterback play has been uneven. The running backs, Nick Singleton hasn't given them anything. The receivers have been okay, not game-breaking, outside of a couple of moments from Ross. And the tight ends have clearly not recovered from losing Tyler Warren. But I can't look at the offense and say I expected any of this, because there's no reason to. They were a veteran group. They're a talented group of positions where they lost veteran guys. So it's kind of, yeah, I think that the only explanation I could have is we overrated them on defense a little bit. But everything else, I don't have any real answers for anybody. It's kind of puzzling, and it's really one of the great mysteries of my time being around the program, which has gone on for a long time now.
What I find interesting is that, I mean, statistically, and I pointed this out earlier, you have to take out the interception by Dennis Sutton, because that was a 2-point conversion, so statistically it doesn't count, except being a 2-point conversion that was no good. They haven't had a takeaway, Donnie, in the last 3 games, which, like, for a Penn State defense, you sit back and go, that's really a shocking number.
Yeah, they don't do anything that you're used to them doing, and they don't do anything that a veteran team does. I said last week they're only okay. They're in the 8 minute and those middle 8 minutes that James always talked about. They're only okay. They're giving up points there where they haven't in the past. They're not making big splash plays on offense. consistently enough. I mean, if at all, they're not trying to push the ball down the field. And I'm not saying chuck it deep. I'm not doing it, but it's got to work within the parameters of the offense because they had a cornerback who could deliver that ball. They had some receivers who can go get it. They're just. Yeah, they just don't do any. They haven't made those steps toward getting over the top from last year that you would expect a veteran team to make. And I keep coming back to that in my mind: a veteran team. They didn't play like it. They played like a team that was young and capable but not experienced enough. And these guys kind of in the moment haven't lived up to it. And once that moment passed him against Oregon, he never recovered. And it's just that's kind of the mentality. And Terry Smith kind of commented on the grittiness, the toughness, multiple times during his press conference today that this team didn't have. And I'm just kind of surprised because I thought it was a given. I thought they had it. I thought we saw it a little bit last year, and it just was never there.
Yeah, that's what's been the shock about it. These are all the guys that were important parts of getting Penn State to its first ever national semifinal game. How tough was it to see how Drew Aller's career at Penn State end?
Yeah, that's brutal. And you don't want to see any player go out that way. But it's hard with Drew because as somebody who covered Drew for a lot of years there, he's not a kid who this didn't mean anything to. He wasn't a kid who ever looked at the NFL and said, "That's where I'm going. I'm going to be there, and whatever happens here is just kind of leading me there." Playing at Penn State meant something to Drew. Winning at Penn State meant something to Drew. We saw it in his comments last week before the game. I don't remember what it was. I'm in the last building from 6 a.m. to 8:30 or whatever it is, 8:30 at night, and it's you don't want to see that happen to him. And I'll say this about him: I think he's a better player than he ever got credit for. I really think he did whatever they asked of him offensively. He played for a bunch of different coordinators. And I'm not sure any of the offenses were really his strength. I don't think any of them asked him to do what he really does best, and he battled through it in an age where you could leave, where you could go take NIL money elsewhere, where you can go to the NFL. He stayed. He stuck it out, and to see him not get what he deserved out of this, to me, is it's kind of it kind of got lost in the big stories of the weekend. But to me, that's as sad as anything that's happened for Penn State this year is that he goes out in this manner, and he's going to live with that. He's going to take it hard. I know he's going to take that hard. He's a great kid. I think he's going to be a really good NFL quarterback. I know a lot of the fans question what he really the feel he really has for the position, but I don't. I think he's going to be really good. I think somebody's going to get a steal there, whatever round they get him in, and I think it's a shame that it didn't happen for him at Penn State.
Yeah, he will be a steal for somebody, believe me. He's the kind of guy they're going to love him in the locker room. They're going to love his attitude, his work ethic, and he's going to be able to do some things. Now, that also now means the door is open for Ethan Grunkemeyer, of which I'd say even the most knowledgeable fan knows very little about. How interested are you to see him in, of all things, he's got an interim head coach. He's going into Kinnick Stadium. It's going to transition from late afternoon to night. How interested are you to see him in this?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of really interesting things going on here with Grunkemeyer. Number one is the staff, because you get these interim staffs in, and you immediately start to see what everybody would do if they had been calling plays or they had been in charge. So we'll see what Terry Smith thinks of Ethan Grunkemeyer pretty quick. But and Terry's going to have a good opinion of that because he sees him in practice all the time, and he's a guy who's trying to do his best to give Grunkemeyer good looks and develop him from that perspective. So now he's got a whole different perspective on it. So we'll see what he thinks he can do. But I think one thing fans kind of lose here is that they don't put these guys in and and let him go and see what they can do. They put him in there and ask him to run the system. And I think there's a case to be made here that the system might be a little better for a guy like Runkemeyer. I mean, he runs a little bit. From what we're told, you're right. We haven't seen very much from him. It's basically one drive from the, I think that game. But yeah, I think it'll be very interesting because the last time Penn State went in to Iowa and had to use the backup quarterback, it didn't go so well. So that's a very, very difficult place to play for any players. Never mind someone that is making his first start. But this is we're going to find out a lot about the kid, whether he has some moxie to him, whether he's got some gumption, because this is a big moment for him. Because you look at it, he's auditioning for next year. There's going to be a new head coach. There's going to be a whole maybe a new offense in there, and there's plenty of quarterbacks going to be hitting the market. So we're going to see if a guy could show that he could keep the job. I think that would be the hope for Penn State, is that he shows them something. But this is a tough place to start showing that. It's a really, really difficult environment.
And by the way, there is an Iowa kid on the roster, a quarterback. That's Jackson Smolik. I'm not saying it's not out of the realm of possibility we see a little bit of him. You don't know. What about Terry Smith and how he handled his part of the press conference today, because he had to get up there as the interim head coach and make a transition from somebody in James Franklin he deeply cares about to then talking about a football team and a program he deeply cares about?
Yeah, I really thought – I was really impressed with Terry. And it's kind of unfair to say that because I knew I would be, because he's one of the great guys, really, really tremendous Penn State guy. It means something to him to be there. Obviously, he's been there his whole life pretty much. So he owes a lot to Penn State. He knows that, and he's trying to give back. So I was interested to see how he'd handle it. And given his close relationship with James, and he got emotional over it during the press conference, but he pulled no punches. He made sure everybody knew, hey, this team needs a toughness and a grittiness and a swag that it hasn't had all year. And we'll see if he can give that back to them. Gives it back to you is winning. So you go out and win a game, and you'll have all that back and all that confidence you lost. But I really thought, going into those two press conferences, the news of the day was going to be what Pat Kraft said, but the story of the program was going to be what Terry Smith said, and he was really open about a lot of things. The team's relationship with James. He was asked about keeping the class together, keeping the recruiting class together, and he basically said, "I got my job really cut out for me here. It's going to be very difficult." And I think that's one thing those things that he addressed are things that a lot of people don't look into. You get rid of your head coach, but now you have to really wonder what's going to happen to my staff, what's going to happen to my future, my recruiting class. The guys currently on the team, is this program going to look like it does currently in a few months? And the answer is probably not, but I think the confidence that they have in Terry Smith to keep it as close to what it is it's high, and it should be, because he's the guy that's, James is beloved in that locker room. Don't get me wrong, but so is Terry Smith. So we'll see if him being around kind of keeps the team together. It's at a critical point for the program, and I think he's the right guy for that.
Well, he is absolutely the right guy for it, and that's one thing. When Jack Ham and I take an opportunity, usually on Thursdays and Fridays, we usually try to make sure we've always made time to talk to Terry, because, to be honest with you, Terry doesn't pull punches. He's blunt. If he thinks something's good, he'll tell you it's good. If he thinks something isn't quite right, he'll tell you it isn't right. Now, that's with us in private conversation. But, I mean, that's why the two of us have always respected. We always felt like we got the straight shot when we talked to him.
Yeah, I think a lot of us who've dealt with him over the years feel the same way. One thing he said today that I thought was kind of under the radar a little bit, but he said that playing time is earned on the field.
Yes.
And he is one guy who did bench a guy for playing poorly during this stretch here. I mean, A.J. Harris didn't play very well. Came in with a lot of accolades, a lot of respect, a lot of the fan stuff. This is your lockdown corner for the year on the way to the national championship.
He benched him on Saturday. I think that's putting your money where your mouth is, and that's going to be I think there's some accountability to be had now under the Terry Smith regime here for a lot of these players who now have to go out and earn it, and I think that's a good thing at this point in time for Penn State, because if you're not going to go and fight, the time to fight was last week and the week before. The time to fight is past, but now for this season, but the fight for the future is starting now, and if I feel like that Terry Smith could go into this saying things like that and having something to back it up, because it can't be easy to pinch A.J. Harris. It just can't be. He's a good player.
Yeah. But Terry will do that. Now, it helps that he has Elliott Washington and Davian Collins, but he can do that.
Terry benching a starter is different than Dan Connor benching a starter.
Yes, there's no question. Which then brings me to a comment that you made about what Terry discussed, and that's toughness up front on both sides. I felt that was a very revealing comment as to how he evaluated things.
Yeah, and it's a very accurate comment from what I think we've all seen. They never established themselves as a dominant team in the trenches. Now, I kind of hinted at it earlier, we could debate whether that's possible on the defensive line, whether they could dominate opponents. They're not great up the middle. That's something Bob Shoup always talked about when I would talk to him, and Manny was the same way. Got to be strong up the middle on defense. They're not as strong up the middle as they have been, especially without Rojas. So
I do wonder if the defensive line is going to be dominant. The offensive line can be dominant, and that's going to be a real litmus test for this program moving forward. Could he get the most out of what this offensive line was supposed to be? But yeah, sometimes it's not surprising what is said, but that is said, and I don't want to call it surprising because it's true, but to hear the interim coach come in and have a 20-minute press conference and go really early on the toughness and grit and kind of put it on both the lines is very telling, and it's why Penn State's in the position it's in right now, and they need to fix that really quick. And I think he's the guy who's going to come in and you're going to at least see effort guys out there.
And that's the bottom line. Because if James was not around, like if he had to make a recruiting trip or something, it was actually always Terry that he would say, okay, you run this, this, and this. So the players already knew that ahead of time. But they're at least putting somebody in place that is universally respected in the locker room right out of the jump. And that's what Terry has. He's got that kind of cachet.
Yeah, he might be the most respected former Penn State player in the program. Or around the program, and it's been that way for a very long time. And I think among current players, former players, there doesn't meet anybody who has a bad word to say about Terry Smith or the way he approaches football and Penn State. So yeah, I agree with that. And I think the power of you got your coach fired is a real motivating factor right now. And then Terry's got that hammer. And he should wield it, and I think he plans to.
Donnie, absolute pleasure as always. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time and your analysis.
Thanks, Steve. Talk to you soon.
Donnie Collins joining us on the show today.